We will, at this time, call to order the special council meeting of the Stevensville City Council here on Tuesday, August the 18th at 5:31. And welcome everybody tonight. We've got the main purpose of tonight's meeting is to, a requirement tied to the budget, and that's to, in a minute, we'll get to a public hearing on the fiscal year 2015-2016 budget. A lot of work has gone into that document. We have had a series of meetings to go over that, and tonight is an opportunity for us to hear from the public about their thoughts and comments on the budget. So with that, we'll move into the agenda for the evening. The first item is an update on recommendation from the city administrator on planning and building services. So Pat, I'll just turn the floor over to you for an update.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'm still seeking actual professional services. I've visited with one firm so far to get their proposal on conducting this analysis, and it was about $28,000. So I'm still searching to see what else is out there that can provide what we want. However, in the meantime, I have visited with a company, Countywide Inspections. They provide inspection services as well as some plan review. They're going to be providing me with an interim inspector to assist with planning inspections and review. They should be here starting in the morning. And the reason they're coming in is to improve our service delivery in that area, to make sure that nothing's falling through the cracks and that these sites are being inspected in the manner that they should be. The other thing I'm going to ask the council to consider tonight is as you recall, one of the items that you approved in next year's budget was some administrative help for planning and building services. I'm going to ask council to consider allowing me to hire that person a little bit early. I visited with Mr. Wood. We do have funding to cover the month or so between now and the next fiscal period, or next fiscal year. And I think that would go a long way to get some of the administrative issues in there on track, as well as provide us with an opportunity to provide some better service, better timely service by having someone there in the office full-time to handle permits and customers and what have you.
Okay, so anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, any questions for Pat on that?
You're trying to get an extra person in there real soon to help with the permit.
Yes, sir. The council approved in next year's budget that administrative position. I'm asking to get it in about a month early to start getting started on things.
It's now authorized for about what time?
We would start looking to hire the position October 1.
I have a question for
Okay.
Randy. Can we take action on that proposal or recommendation from Pat on the early hire of an administrative assistant in that planning and building services?
I think it's adequately on this agenda.
Okay,
If you want to
thank you.
take action, you can.
Thank you.
So do you have any numbers or start date or kind of strategy to do this? Or I guess, Pat, give us more details on what the proposal is.
Well, we'll look at the money that's budgeted for next year and prorate that for this month or so. Obviously, got to have an advertising period to see how many applicants we get in. So I would hope after a couple of weeks we would have some decent applicants to look at, and then maybe get them on board within the next 3 to 4 weeks, and that would still give us a little bit of time between now and October 1 to
try to go through one of those services, or just make direct ads?
No, we'll just, it's an administrative type position, and so we would post a job announcement online and in the media, and take our applicants that way. Those aren't usually done through a search firm.
Okay.
Walter, can you tell us what 1/12 of the budgeted amount we have for that position?
Well, we
would
have
be?
$48,000 budget for the year, so
Okay.
dividing 12, is about $4,000 a month. So
Right.
the employee would be only gonna be on hand for maybe a week to 2 weeks, so the charges or salary would be minimal.
Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks early maybe.
At the
before
very
October.
most, that's what
Right.
we would pay. So we have
Okay.
a money budget
Right.
for that position. I have
Okay.
salary savings of 58 on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion if the council, if it's the pleasure of the council.
I move that we start exploring that possibility now. And if necessary, do what we need to do on the budget to get somebody in there. I think there's not enough people in that department right now, I think, you know.
Randy, is that adequate
Yeah, I
motion?
think it's
Okay, I'll
adequate.
second the motion.
Okay, let me state this, what I think I
Authorize the
heard.
hiring.
Basically, the motion is to authorize to proceed with hiring, using funds in this fiscal year for the position the council has approved for the 1 October budget that's in front of us, to allow the city administrator to proceed with the hiring action for that using available funds in the budget. So the motion is to proceed with hiring for clerk position and building and planning and building services using current year funds. Motion was made by Mr. Wagner and seconded by Mr. McDaniel. Any discussion?
I have one question, Mayor. We're voting to start a position early that will not be created or funded until we approve the budget for next year. Am I looking at that correct?
Right.
Do we need to vote on the budget first and then his request to begin the funding for that position early, or does it matter?
As long as you got the money, I don't think it matters.
Okay. The assumption is that position will be approved with the budget, and if it is, we're okay.
Well, that's a good question, but
Is there something from the discussions to date that would lead you to think that we might not accept the position, or, I mean, we have talked about this at length.
I think that we will probably, but I'm just, from the parliamentary side of it, we're approving something that hasn't been created yet.
if the council feels that way, and I understand what you're saying, it's got merit to it, you might wanna table it and then vote on it after you, I know we're not approving the budget today, that's gonna delay you, so I'm telling you, you could do it,
Okay.
but you do what you want to do.
If you're comfortable with it, I can, because
What that would in effect do is just negate what he wants to do, so I'm comfortable with it if you.
Okay.
If you're comfortable.
So in a way, I guess maybe to clean that up, we're approving the use of this year's money for whatever period it's available. And we could in the budget disapprove the position. I mean, so what we're doing is just moving it forward with what it sounds like is gonna be 1 or 2 weeks worth of money. And if we don't approve the position, then they'll be on board for 2 weeks and then they'll be gone. But, you know, I think this isn't a surprise to us that Pat's asking for the position, because it is news to us this evening that he's wanting us to move it forward, but it is a position that we have discussed in the staffing study. We did include it in the budget that's before the public for their review tonight. So those are both, in my mind, clear indicators that it's the intent of the council to move forward with the position. And So what we're looking to do here is, I think, just kind of an administrative action to fund a position for 2 to 3 weeks in this fiscal year pending official approval and adoption in next year's budget. Does that make sense to you, Walter?
It sure does.
Okay.
That's right.
Mayor, what's the date that we actually will approve the budget? What's that?
September first.
So we have, that's 2 weeks from, basically 2 weeks from today. So what that means is he won't have the position hired by then anyway, probably, so.
Right.
At that point, if we decide not to do the position, we can always tell him, okay, you've done some great interviews, but sorry.
Right.
At that
So we do
point.
have another check in the system.
That's
I think
fine.
I think that fits. Would you agree with that, Alan?
Yeah. As much as it grieves me to agree with you, yes.
Okay.
I love it,
Are
baby.
you gonna agree that y'all agree?
Any other
Put that in a
discussion?
motion.
All right, then we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries as presented. All right, the next item on the agenda is the public hearing for the budget for fiscal year 2015-2016. And I will, at this time, open a public hearing to allow comment from the public and input. And I guess as we move into that, if we could get Pat and Walter to give us just a quick summary, and then if anyone would like to come forward and speak, please feel free to do so. So, Pat?
Okay. I've got a few comments, and then I'll turn it over to Walter for additional comments and questions. The operating budget in next year's is set at $12,135,818. The operating budget in the current fiscal year was $12,495,385. And so one thing I'd like to congratulate the council and staff on, and make sure the public is aware of, is that was $360,000 that through our efforts was reduced in this current budget. That's along with the roughly $467,000 that is designated for the EDC. In this budget, we've recommended new positions. With all those cuts that have been made, we're actually adding new positions. No reduction in services. We've got capital equipment being purchased. We've got pavement management plan, a street engineering design plan to go towards rebuilding our streets. We've got funding in this budget to rewrite our subdivision regulations to bring them up to date. This budget here also has funding for phase 1 of the East Side Sewer acquisition. And I think one of the things that's pleasing is the fact that this is a balanced budget, and we end up with a surplus of about $57,000. And I think what the public may not be aware of is we had our budget discussions during our retreat back in June, and we had a couple of days to talk about it then. But we had 4 nights blocked off to actually get this thing hammered out and approved. And between council and staff, we had that done in 1 night. And I've been here 5 years, and that's never happened before, where everyone was in agreement on 1 night. So I think that speaks to the thought and the level of cooperation that went into putting this together. So that's all the comments I have, Mayor. Walter?
Mayor, Council, I am pleased to present you with a balanced budget, like City Administrator said. On page 1 of your handout, it shows an overall picture of the city by the funds. And you'll notice at the very top, we have a $22 million in revenue. If you look at page number 3, that breaks it down by the different types of revenues by funds. Expenditures, we have $20,400,000 in expenditures. If you look on page 4, that breaks the expenditures out by department. That gives us a baseline budget of $1.6 million for the council and the mayor and the citizens to decide what they want to spend it on. We have spent $1.16 million on capital replacements and new programs. If you look on page 7, you'll see all the items that we are approving in this year's budget for the new replacements or the new programs and capital replacements. And the grand total is $21,569,876. If you look on page 6, you'll see the breakdown by categories of the total budget by all the funds and the categories. Mr. Bridges mentioned that we cut the budget by $359,000 or $360,000. That was over the beginning operating budget of $12,495,000 for the general fund. I'd like to point out to the council that right now our overall operating budget is $21,569,876. Right now, at this current time, we have a mid-year budget of $22,505,886 is what we're currently operating with all the programs and the new programs and the mid-year budget adjustments. So our beginning budget this year is actually $936,010 less than what we're operating on, or 4.16% less than what we're currently operating on. That's really all I've got. Any questions?
Any questions?
I'll make a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say thank you to all the staff, you particularly Walter. I know that you went through here, and one of the reasons it went so smoothly was you had a red pen, and you did a lot of that. You did a lot of work for us, and I appreciate that a lot, but I appreciate the hard work that everybody did. I think we've had some discussions about things that we would like to see done in the future. It's some opportunity we have, and I think that we'll be able to do that before too long. So I really appreciate it.
I'm very proud of this budget. We've done a great job, and I think with the Economic Development Initiative this year, we have shifted money out of our operations to fund that, but the overall effect is not as bad as it looks. We've really, because we haven't captured all the growth that we're currently dealing with in sales tax. I just got my latest estimates today. We are now trending at almost $5.7 million. I'm only appropriating 5.6, so things are looking good. Even with the economic development, we still got a good budget.
That's right.
Okay. All right, let me open the floor to anyone from the public that would like to come forward and make any comments. Okay, seeing none, I will at this time close the public hearing. I want to stop just a second here and repeat a couple of things that were said, because it is City Council. Thank you. Staff, thank you. We just had presented a budget that not only transferred $456,000 to the EDC, but reduced the operating expense by almost $400,000. No reduction in service levels in the city. That is fantastic. Somebody said that it couldn't be done, but he with a chuckle replied that maybe it couldn't, but he would be one who wouldn't say so till he tried. The other thing I want to highlight is that it is a balanced budget. Expenses are less than revenue. We are living within our means. The other thing I want to make sure didn't go unnoticed is that there is money to update our subdivision ordinances, to modernize them, that will surely help us with some of our single-family home needs in the community. And last, and maybe most importantly, we have a new approach in the city to fixing streets. I want to make sure this does not go unnoticed, because I think this is a significant shift in the approach that our city is taking to fixing streets. We're committing to a $100,000 design program that will result in repairing $1 million worth of streets. And what we're doing is we're taking a, what I'll call a stair-step approach, because what we've done in the past budgets is that in a single line item, we were asking the city staff to design and execute a project within a single fiscal year. And what we're doing this year is that we're going to understand what is the worst street in town, then we're gonna design it so we know what it costs, and then we're gonna allocate the resources to that once we all understand this is the worst street and this is really what it's gonna cost. So there will be transparency in that process that helps us as a council stay engaged, but also it helps the city staff in that they can plan, then design, then execute a project. And so this budget commits to $1 million street program. And I know that that's important to our community, and it's part of a refocus, I think, on this council's part on the infrastructure of the community. And just one other side note about the new positions is that those just didn't fall out of the sky. They were the result of a third-party review of the staff requirements, and it was positions that are what I will call people that actually do work. They don't just think about work. So it will be bringing in lower level positions that will free up time. That one way of looking at it is we're spending money on administrative requirements that we now will be able to focus in an area, so that'll be very helpful for us. So, and as I know the council's tired of me bringing up, I always say one more thing. Well, I got one more thing. The East Side Sewer and being able to look at the land acquisition tied to that is an economic development decision, a focus for our community, realizing that the east side of Stephenville and the 281 corridor is a very important future economic development area for our community. And it's time for us to just stop talking about it and start doing something. And so that's what that item in there allows us to start moving in that direction. So it's a good, great news story, and we'll have further steps in the budget, which now takes us to the next item on the agenda, which is to consider the time, date, and place of a public hearing on the tax rate for 2015. And council in the budget, or excuse me, in our agenda packet on page 8 is that proposed notice with a hearing on September 1st and a hearing on September 8th. And unless there's any questions for Pat, I'll entertain a motion for us to proceed with this as in our packet.
Mayor, I move we adopt the date and time as presented in the packet for our proposed property tax rate hearing.
This is just on the date of it.
Date and, yes, date time.
Second.
So it's been moved by Mr. Savine, seconded by Mr. Nix to approve the adoption of September 1st at 5:30 and September 8th at 5:30 as the first and second hearing on the proposed property tax rate for the city of Stephenville for 2015. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, now at this time, we're going to move into executive session, and so I'll, at 5:56, I'll call the council into executive session in compliance with section 551.074 personnel matters, and ask us to reconvene in the training room.